Coogs House. All right, so Athlon Sports is the first of any company to put out their preseason All-Big-XII football team with a couple Cougs on the roster, but a couple Cougs seem to be missing.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater came to step by, please be sure to subscribe down below. That way, latest on the Cougs on your newsfeed each and every day. We appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. It is good to see you again to you every day. We had some fun talking about the Cougar baseball program yesterday, and then the game did not go as planned, but it's okay. It's Double Elimination Tournament. We talked all about that in the episode yesterday with Jeremy Brenham. So make sure to check that out. We got more stuff to talk about this week as far as basketball and football and off-season kind of stuff going on with them and transfers and ins and outs and all of those things. But today, I want to spend some time talking about the Athlon All-Big-XII preseason team. Is our first season in the Big 12, and that is exciting news. Now, I will say, before we get too far ahead here, remember, every 250 subscribers, we're giving away a Locked On hat, just like the one I've got on here. It's got the Cougar paw on the front, Locked On the side, the Nike Dry Fit hat. At 250 subscribers, we're giving that away. So at 1250, that is going to someone that's liking, comment on the video. So subscribe to make sure we get there. Like and comment to make sure that you're in the contest. If you're done talking about preseason awards after this episode, tell us if you think a muffin is a cupcake. All right, so today's episode, we're going to talk about first who made the team, because I think we're celebrating those gentlemen that did make the team. We had a handful of Cougars on the team for our first year in a loaded conference, and that's rather impressive. The second, I want to look at one position group that I think is getting snubbed as a whole, as several guys I would have thought would have been on this team, and only one from that position group is. And then in the third segment, I want to look at other guys that are from different position groups that also I would have thought made the team. Now let's first talk about Athlon Sports and who did make the team. Athlon Sports put out their 2023 All-Big-XII teams. And I first should point out that like UT Austin had 20 selections, TCU, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State all had over 10 as well. Houston had 5. And so like I think it's worth pointing out, like for our first year in the conference, you know, these people are not familiar with a whole lot of Houston guys. The Athlon Sports Big 12 guys maybe like are still trying to figure things out, and they might not have seen like the growth. They might just be looking at stats, right? But the guys that did make the team were on the first team. You had Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden, it should be the number 1 receiver this fall for Houston. He is the first team, or on the first team. And he's one of just a few receivers honored as such in the conference. There are just 3 on there. Matthew Golden and Xavier Worthy from Texas, and then Brendan Wesley from Oklahoma State. Matthew Golden had 38 catches and 56 targets last year for 584 yards and 7 touchdowns. He set several receiving records for freshmen. I don't need to go through the laundry list. Got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, but it is worth pointing out that that's what he got as a third, maybe even fourth option last year. He couldn't want to kind of work into more consistent snaps as a true freshman last season. And in his sophomore season, we've seen what Dana Holgorsen can do when he has a solid singular receiving threat and how he can manipulate defenses and get that guy the rock. I imagine what you see with Matthew Golden this season, in the upcoming season, and I imagine that's why he gets the all-first team nod. Patrick Paul, who I have maintained since this podcast started many moons ago at this point, is on the second team. He's a pro, right? I maintain he's a pro at 6'7", 315. Pro Football Focus, which gives percentages on guys that do their job or are in the right place at the right time, 90 or whatever percentage of the time. Patrick Paul earned a 91.1% grade in pass protection, meaning that he, per Pro Football Focus Analytics, was in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing 91.9% of the time. Again, that's pro-level caliber stuff from our 6'7", 315-pound left tackle. Gave it just 1 sack, 3 hits, and 14 total hurries. Played 900 snaps at left tackle for a left tackle that has to do a lot of bending and curving and like all kinds of athletic things out there in the perimeter of the offensive line. That's really, really impressive durability. On the third team that Athlon Sports put out, Nelson Caesar came in on at the representing the defensive line. He's a 6'3", 250-pound pass rusher. He had a 78.1 on the same Pro Football Focus ranking ratings in pass rushing last year. That means he was doing the right thing, getting to the right spots, and beating his guys 78.1% of the time in pass rushing situations. 4 sacks, 7 hurries, and 48 pressures. Last year with a deep defensive line, he played 729 snaps, right? Remember, like, first part of the season, Derek Parrish on that line. He went pro. DeAnthony Jones went pro. Right? That was a stacked defensive line, and he still got 729 total snaps and got all of those stats in said snaps. I think his most famous play, though, from last season is obviously going to be the big scoop and score that ended and kind of put the nail in the coffin in the Rice game, because I was getting a little sketchy, little touch and go there down the stretch. He gets honored with the nod here. He's got a great game. I love his bend. If you're watching defensive line tape, his shin angles and his bend are really, really impressive for you sickos and film junkies out there. Adari A.J. Halsey, a new guy to the conference, comes in at also on the third team for Houston. He's a 6 foot, 215-pound defensive back. He had an 86.2 grade in pass coverage per Pro Football Focus. That's hard to say. But that means 86.6% of the time he is doing everything in the right place and making the right plays. And pass coverage is really, really high. I forgot it was a freshman a season ago. He had 68 tackles and was targeted just 23 times. That math only maths when you're also helping out across the field on other plays. In just being targeted 23 times, he had 2 picks and only allowed 3 touchdowns. Those are really, really good ratios if you're into those kinds of things. Big time transfer recruit coming in, and he gets the nod because of it. He was a highly coveted recruit coming back to the city of Houston to represent the U of H. And on the fourth team, Jack Freeman the fourth. Maybe they gave him the fourth team because he is the fourth as opposed to the third team or something like that. We'll see. But Pro Football Focus also had him at a 76.8% in pass pro and a 71.6% on run. That means in both categories, he was doing very, very well. I mean, the right place, right time, doing the right thing on pass and run plays. He gave up just 2 sacks and 14 hurries last season. But perhaps the most impressive stat from Jack Freeman, the thing that might honestly have landed him on this team in and of itself in his 6th year of eligibility next season, is that he played 935 snaps, all of which were at center. Mr. Consistency, Mr. Durability. That was the most snaps of anyone on the offense last season. Even Tank Dell, even Clayton Tune. That was the most snaps of any player on the Houston offense last season from one Jack Freeman, playing one of the more physical positions on the football field. So they obviously saw that and rewarded that with a fourth team nod. So again, 5 different guys across the 4 different teams, 3 offense, 2 defense. That's really, really good for the Cougars as they move into the Big 12. Frankly, that means that of these spots, I mean, people see Houston as a team that already present tense has Big 12 caliber talent, right? Matthew Golden being one of the 3 best receivers in the Big 12 next season is what people are seeing as they look at this, right? That's not just me talking as a homer. That's not just you listening as a homer. That is what people that analyze the whole conference see coming in from Houston. Patrick Paul being on the second team offensive line means people think of him as one of the 10 best linemen coming into the conference. And frankly, when this differentiates center versus the rest of the offensive line, he's really one of the 4 or one of the 8 best non-centers coming in. That I think is worth pointing out as well, because the center spot is kind of unique in the way they treat it. It's got its own, the way they label it was center and then 4 linemen, center and then 4 linemen. Jack Freeman was worth then they head down to the 4th best center in the 14-team conference for next season. These are all positive things. You think about like Sac Avenue, whatever. Nelson Caesar representing Sac Avenue on the 3rd team all defense is impressive when you look at like on these defensive lines, they have all the different positions, pass rushing specialists, run stoppers, nose tackles, run plug guys, all those different things. A lot of people competing for just a handful of spots. Nelson Caesar is on the 3rd team. And then A.J. Halsey, I mean, coming in here and making the 3rd team, having not played a Power 5 football snap, and frankly, having just got to Houston a few months ago at this point, is really, really impressive in and of itself. A good showing, but not the best showing it could have been. I maintain, and I think that Houston probably could have had a handful more people, including at least one or two more people from a specific position group that I do think got left out a little bit. And I want to talk to you more about that in a moment. But first, let's talk about our buddies at Bird Dogs. Now, Bird Dogs are like crazy comfortable and they look great while you're being active in them. You can wear them to work, on a date, to the gym. Shorts go in I guess you wear pants in the pool if you really want to. They got the perfect material with all the stretch and give of athleticism, but they also have this water resistant material. So it you can wear in the pool, or if you're sweating at the gym or whatever. They look great, and you can wear them in formal events as well. Perfect pants and shorts for all occasions. Teaching, it's the summertime, it's hot. I've been wearing them, my long pants, to work, to teach, teacher and coach during the day these days. I got a pair of shorts coaching in the afternoons as well. We're getting ready for summer workouts and football, all those kinds of things. And I'm telling you, you need them as well. Plus, if you go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, when you enter that code, the promo code LockedOnCollege, they'll throw in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Now, as we wrap up the school year, mine has iced coffee in it. But as we head into summer, you can put whatever you want in yours. Go to birddogs.com, use code LockedOnCollege today. All right, so I mentioned that there's a position group getting kind of left out, to say the least. Now, I will say that I have some reasons at the end of the segment why I think that might be. But bluntly, we've talked before, and I mentioned the everydayers nodding already because it was 2 months ago at this point. But Houston's got a real chance to put their name on the map in the South as wide receiver U. They've got a great wide receiver room. And I maintain, while it is headlined by Matthew Golden, which Athlon Sports was able to recognize, they've got what might be the best wide receiver room in the Big 12. For starters, you bring back Matthew Golden and Sam Brown. Sam Brown is 6'2", 195 pounds. And last season, as a third and fourth, and with Keyshawn Carter, you might argue he was a fifth option, he had 41 catches and 57 targets and 4 touchdowns on 470 yards. That's an impressive campaign last year from Sam Brown, even though it was marred by things like when he, slapped the Tulsa guy after the game in the face. Maybe that's why he didn't make it. I also think, as we're pointing out, we're bringing back Joseph Manjack. Joseph Manjack IV missed a lot of last season, played just 5 games, counting the bowl game. In those 5 games, he had 15 catches on 19 targets with the huge touchdown against UTSA and 158 total yards. This guy's 6'3", 205, big, strong-bodied guy. I think he's easy to forget about because he played so little last season. But, man, he's an important football player to this team, and his versatility as a blocker with a big body and a pass catcher is really, really important. I feel like we might be looking back at the end of the season as with him being one of the more important guys. And if it's not him in that big body dual threat role, I think the new guy, Joshua Cobbs, coming in from Wyoming, he's 6'4", 205, and in the stagnant, run-heavy Wyoming offense, he had 35 catches on 68 targets with 2 touchdowns and 407 yards. That's an impressive stat line when you break down what they were doing at Wyoming. Much like Halsey comes in and ought to make immediate impact on the defensive backfield, I think Joshua Cobbs could make an immediate impact on the offensive perimeters as a big blocking receiver type body, because that's what he did at Wyoming, and jump ball threat, right? He and Manjack both can catch that jump ball over the linebackers, or if you get them isolated on linebacker, they have a little more speed than typical linebacker. I think they both are great matchups if you can get a team out of their nickel packages to run away from those heavier type bodies, because you've got to put a bigger body on them for run game type stuff. So I think one of them is going to have a big year, if not both. And then last but not least, Stephon Boogie Johnson is called Boogie Johnson for a reason. The transfer from Oklahoma State is 6'2", 185. Again, he's from Oklahoma State. He knows the Big 12, and the Big 12 knows him. Last season, he was a young guy at Oklahoma State, didn't get to play a whole lot, had 37 targets and 18 catches for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in 9 games. But that was highlighted by an 84-yard touchdown against Wisconsin in their bowl game. And I have to say that if that's your last impression from Oklahoma State, people in the Big 12 saw it, and the fact that he doesn't get any love as even a 4th-team type guy coming to an offense like Dana Holgorsen, where the ball is slung all over the field, is a little interesting. And I wonder if that's for a couple different reasons. The first reason, I think that the only receiver in the entire list here, even though I think many receivers could have made this all Big 12 1 through 4 team list, and Matthew Golden's the only one. He made first team, which I would argue is the right pick, obviously. But I wonder if there's almost too many receivers. It's going to be the kind of thing where like too many guys eat and there isn't enough food in the kitchen, right? We just mentioned like 5 or 6 pass catchers over the course of this episode. We have not yet mentioned Jacoby Banks, who's a 4-star freshman coming in. Mikael Harrison Pilot is one of the highest ranked recruits to ever come to U of H for football, also coming in. Those guys will be route runners. Those guys will be on the field as freshmen as well. That's a lot of dudes running routes. That's a lot of dudes catching footballs. And it's almost like the people voting didn't know who's going to be second or third in catches because there's just so many options and bodies. And frankly, the positive person, we must think that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing for Houston because that means there's a bunch of different options. If the writers can't figure it out, I'd imagine the defenses at least have questions as well. The pessimist in me makes me think that coming in the new conference, people might not be doing their homework on like who some of these guys are. It's hard to look at Houston and not notice Matthew Golden. You'd have to watch some tape to understand that Sam Brown's going to turn that 41 catch and 57 targets into more like 70, 75 targets potentially, right? Manjack played just 5 games. You couldn't watch like the Kansas game and watch Joseph Manjack because he wasn't out there in said Kansas game, right? Like those kinds of things have to matter too, I guess. I wonder if that all has something to do with it. I also think it's worth pointing out that Houston, the big notable hire on the offensive staff, obviously Shannon Dawson departed for Miami, and we weren't too upset about it. But the big hire was a run-minded offensive line coach in Emmanuel Gavi, and he comes from Tulane. They had a talented run game there. Obviously, Tajay Spears and all that kind of stuff. Are people looking at that as an indicator where, yeah, we know what Dana does, and Matthew Golden is great, but they're not going to have enough passes thrown to get these other guys to rock because of the new run-focused right offense. I hesitate to think they're going to change how often they run the ball. I feel it's more going to be like how they decide to run the ball. Counters instead of zones or zones of those kinds of decisions maybe change. But I could see how a national writer might not pick that up from Athlon. And then the last but certainly not least decision I think that went into this is that Houston notably has a quarterback battle happening. We didn't get to see a spring game, so we didn't get to see what Lucas Coley transfer as of a year ago, almost 2 years ago at this point, from Arkansas. No, I guess a year ago. From Arkansas. We didn't get to see him play in a spring game and get any real snaps last season. And then transfer in January, Donovan Smith from Texas Tech, while he's familiar with Big 12 folks, has a tendency to turn the ball over some, but also Big 12 folks might not know if he's going to start because he is in a battle with Lucas Coley. Now, we're going to cover that all offseason and talk more about that. But as far as this episode goes, talking about why so many receivers got snubbed from the preseason all-conference team by Athlon, I feel like the fact that we haven't made a decision there may kind of be shaping this because, you know, the old folklore is if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. That could be very well what's going on. Also, for what it's worth, both guys like to run the football as quarterbacks. And that goes back to the potential scheme changes happening. I think a Dana system is in Dana's system. And when it comes down to it, if he's got to get a guy to rock and, you know, get a guy open, he will. But I also watch a lot more of Dana Holgorsen football than I think the normal national writer might, right? And so I guess that's the case. I think that it's interesting, though, that one of the most talented groups I see Houston having had just one guy on it. And the position group that I think people are most worried about as Houston elevates its play into the Big 12, the offensive line, had 2 guys on these 4 teams for what it's worth, right? I think, that means we should all cool our jets a little bit, right? I do think finding that 5th starter is going to be interesting calculus, but maybe we should cool our jets. But we have 2 guys that are as good as anyone gets in the conference in Patrick Paul and Jack Freeman. Other people are noticing it too, right? That's not just me telling you to calm down. Other people notice it too. Other people also notice that some other non-receivers were left off this list, and I think there's a couple guys worth mentioning as potential snubs. So I want to get into them in the third segment. So let's get into them. I guess that's right now. The first guy, and this takes having watched a lot of Houston Cougar football last year, right? I think Stacey Sneed and or Brandon Campbell got left off this list. I personally think I would have put Stacey Sneed on this list somewhere because, well, he had just 76 carries last season because he kind of became the de facto starter late in the year after All McCaskill was injured in the spring of 22, and then Tajon Henry was hurt earlier in the football season itself, and then Brandon Campbell had some fumbling issues or whatever. By fumbling issues, I guess I mean like 2, but you feel me. Stacey Sneed had 76 carries for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. I think his running style, if you watch what he plays, fits very, very well with what Nyagavi is trying to do up front. So I see that as a positive for him and something for him going up. I also see him as the guy that, as I look at the roster right now, probably comes in competing for, if not starting in day one. Obviously, he's going to be competing some with Brandon Campbell. And then the freshman, I'm telling you, is going to play some showing up a kid named Parker Jenkins, local kid too, so that's nice to see. But he's a great 4-star running back, folks. I also think that there was this hole left after All McCaskill left for Colorado. And so people may have left Stacey Sneed out of this, or the entire Houston running back room out of this, because it's going to function as a room. It's going to be a group, a collective of people running back by committee. Also, we mentioned the quarterback battle. With 2 quarterbacks that like to run the football, they could be, what's the fancy football term, vulturing? They could be vulturing some of those touchdowns and stats from a guy like Sneed or a guy like Campbell or a guy like Jenkins. And so, I could see why they might leave him off, but I think Stacey Sneed's going to have a year where he is one of the, how many running backs they're putting on? So 3 running backs a team. So I think he's going to be one of the 12 best running backs in the Big 12 next season. I am fairly firm in saying that. I guess there are 14 teams in the Big 12, so that's not quite the starter on every team, but I think he'll be one of the 12 best, or whoever the de facto starter is will be one of the 12 best, I should say, because if he's not, then someone beats him out and they must be. And yeah, anyway. So I think Stacey Sneed would be the guy. On the defensive line, we saw Nelson Caesar represent Sac Avenue, and that's awesome. I think while he did not play a whole lot of snaps last season, Jamari Caldwell is going to have a big time year. He played just 244 snaps, but he's 6'1", 325. That is Big 12 size as an interior defensive lineman in every sense of the word. I mean, he can play the 3 technique, and that's a big guy for a 3 technique. He can play the nose tackle. That's perfect size for a Power 5 nose tackle. In run defense, Pro Football Focus had him at an 83.2, meaning he's in the right place, right time, doing the right thing at 83.2% of the time. And as an interior run defending defensive lineman, he had 10 pressures and 2 sacks. Again, just 244 snaps. I think very, very highly of Jamari Caldwell. I think as an athlete and football player, and so I think that's gonna be where you see him thrive. And I was surprised that in an elevated role, right? We saw some defensive linemen graduate, and the guys that Houston pulled in are more pass rusher types. So in a more elevated role, I was surprised to see no love for Jamari Caldwell on this list. And speaking of no love, when are we going to get some love for Chidozie Nwankwo? Dot is apparently one of the nicest people on the entire roster. So all praise and flowers to him. But also, and I don't want to say more importantly, but more importantly for this discussion, he anchors the defense in so many ways. I understand, you can look at the defense, they give up 77 SMU, they're not any good or whatever, but that was not the norm always. The defensive line was very, very strong, and he played 637 snaps, more than half of them in A-gaps. He is constantly eating double teams up to free up those guys like Derek Parrish, to free up those guys like Nelson Caesar, right? To free up those guys. And the way he fights through double teams, he got a 76.7 in run defense. Again, his scores and as far as right place, right time, whatever, on Pro Football Focus are all indicative and all comparable to other guys that got on this list. And he's playing in a spot where he's constantly double teamed. So I just feel like that's a spot that's underappreciated. And frankly, we saw this at the end of last season, the American Athletic Conference Awards. Dot continues to be underappreciated at 5'11", 295. He is probably not a pro nose tackle, although it would be cool to see him get a shot at 5'11", 295. But he plays at 5'11" with such great leverage and such great intensity that, truthfully, I feel like he's constantly getting snubbed. Now, if you have other snubs, or if you think I'm off on mine, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at Painsworth512, PAINSWORTH 512 on Twitter, Instagram, and all of your favorite social media handles. I'll be happy to talk all things Cougar football. The baseball tournament's going on as well. I'll be happy to talk Cougar basketball as we're moving into the offseason, more into the thorough part of the offseason each and every day. We'll also be here with you live, or I guess not live, but premiered. I have one ticket, so I guess it feels live. Yeah, that fair? Feels live. All right. I'll be here with you each and every day at Locked On Cougs, as well as make sure you subscribe and follow the show. Thank you all so much for tuning in today and making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. For a second listen, I'm going to recommend going on and listening to Locked On College Basketball, because we're going to talk about basketball later this week, and they're doing a great job dissecting the offseason. So that's going to be a fun thing, looking at guys going pro and where they're drafted and how they're drafted, all the transfers and all those kinds of things. So make sure you go check them out as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.